For decades, the bond between India and Bangladesh has been a tapestry woven with shared history, culture and aspirations. From the spirit of the 1971 Liberation War to the recent partnerships in the field of trade and development, both the countries have navigated a complex journey. Now we are in the middle of 2025 with recent political shifts in Bangladesh. It is very evident that the dynamics between these two nations are indeed changing. Hi, this is Subhrajit Ganguly and you have tuned into the Heritage Pod, a knowledge series podcast. To unpack these questions, today we have a very special guest in our studio, Dr. Sreeradha Datta. With an extensive research and publications on South Asian affairs, particularly India's foreign policy in the neighborhood and cross-border issues, Dr. Datta's insights are invaluable. So, let's get started and dive deep into the conversation where we explore the dynamics between India and Bangladesh. August 2024, a massive change happened in Bangladesh. Even before that, if I trace the timeline, which is 2 years before, the number of hate speeches, especially on the internet and all, it has raised like anything. So what went wrong? Because we used to share a very good relationship with Bangladesh when Hasina was in power. After the fallout of our government, it's a complete paradigm shift. If we see the kind of exchange, the words, the memes, the misinformation, disinformation, what went wrong after that?
Things were going wrong for a very long time. Some of us who observed the story, the landscape a little more closely, were pointing out, but we were minuscule in number. Which brings me to, firstly, thank you for this opportunity. And while it's a wonderful topic, but extremely difficult and sensitive subject at this point of time. So Sheikh Hasina was brought in to power in 2008 December with the largest majority that any political leader has received. And she took over in 2009 January. Things went very well. Bangladesh was also, in another 5-6 years' time, I think the second largest, fastest growing economy in Asia, right after China, having beaten India for a short while also. The growth story was fabulous. What we saw, what the chips started falling, was from the election of 2014. Where when she took over, Bangladesh has a very interesting constitutional character, which they had a caretaker government. So essentially a government who is ushered in for 3 months on a consensus basis. Technocrats are brought in and they support the election commission to hold free and fair elections. That's their role. Mandate is for 90 days. And when she was brought in at 2008 December, Bangladesh had gone through a difficult interregnum period, also brought in because of the way the previous Prime Minister had tried to manipulate the system. Khalida Zia. So when she came in, within a couple of years, she overturned many other constitutional, of course made the country more secular in terms of the constitutional element, but also threw away the caretaker government. And that is where the problem began, because in Bangladesh, despite how much of support you get, the political divisiveness is so strong that no other party actually trusts you. So they didn't think Awami League was stable enough or trustworthy enough to hold free and fair election. So the largest political opposition, which was BNP, said that we can't fight without a caretaker government. So 2014 elections was held without BNP, which is the largest opposition. So it was a very one-sided, clearly, right? So the numbers were overwhelmingly large. And then, of course, came the next election, which is 2018, where BNP was persuaded by largely external players like USA, and I guess we'll talk about that role and other things, to fight the election. So campaign had begun, a lot of things were unrolling. But the day the election was to be held, the night before, most of the ballots got, votes got cast. And so next morning, by early 11 o'clock in the morning, election results were declared without BNP or people going there to actually physically cast their vote. So it was a completely, done thing by the Awami League.
So it was a pure dictatorship.
Yes. So that was the issue. And then, of course, 24 January election. And I was there on that week particularly, and I was all over Dhaka that particular day when elections were held, and I gave an interview there. In fact, on the day I was coming, I've written about in India even previously that in Dhaka and in Bangladesh, I've been there earlier, on the vote day, it's like a celebration. People are out singing, dancing, you'll find students, you'll find it's a very joyous celebration, celebratory mood on the road. That day I said it is not even a dog on the streets. It was as bad as that. And
it never happened before?
No. And I saw how when some particular minister of that MP or that particular local person, political leader was coming in, they were rounding up people to make it look as if they're people. There are many, of course, stories and funny anecdotes that everybody shared with us, but clearly it was a very, very made up. And what they did was, because BNP wasn't willing, there were other issues there, they split up Awami League or other political leaders into groups to act as opposition parties. So essentially you had 3 elections where it was a completely one-sided election. And everybody is watching that. So now, majority, I think about almost or more, I'm figuring the numbers just now, 50% is the youth factor, between the age of 18 to, say, 38. Large numbers didn't go out to vote. They said there was no question of us. That is the beginning of the problem, because every youth there thinks that Sheikh Hasina has been able to do this because India supports her. Also, apart from the election, the other issue was that, she brought in a Digital Security Act, which was very hard on the opposition leaders. Many of her friends, not only just opposition leaders, the media clamping that she did. Okay, she did address the problem of security and terrorism, but on the excuse of terrorism, she almost decimated every political opposition.
Even the quota system also played a big role.
Yes, the last nail in the coffin was the quota system. The quota system, liberation war families, and of course they are given a huge kind of a, they're treated with a huge amount of respect given their role in the ushering in of the independent nation. But everybody felt that while the leaders, by now looking at the age-wise, that they had all either moved on and they didn't require. So it was basically their grandchildren or children who are benefiting from the system, and was that fair? So at one point of time, I think it was in 2018, because of the students again campaigning against the the support like they were being given on various other occasions, not just in terms of this particular issue. So she said that, okay, I'll take away this quota system, the reservation which is meant for liberation, because at times also I think 60% was reservation, again, not only just liberation but other reservation. But again, 2 families from a liberation front brought in, and to the High Court, a kind of a PIL, saying that why should we be not be given? And it was again the High Court mulled over it for a couple of months. So this year, I think it was May or June, 24, they brought in the reservation back, the quota, and that's when these students came out in numbers. And of course then once the state suppression began, we saw what kind of
those killings and all.
That is when the entire nation rallied around them. So, and it began with the students also have been part of experiencing this a little bit. For a couple of years ago, there was a road safety problem that happened in Dhaka. It was these class 8-9 students who came out on the road. I've seen that, holding hands, keeping quiet, just forming human chains. And the government did bring in some changes, trying to get legal permits on the road, some rules and all that. So I think the students started understanding the role of strength of numbers. And I must say, I've never seen student get violent. Not student politics in Bangladesh is horribly violent. Every political leader and political party has their own student faction, which is violent to the core. But these student groups, both when they did the road safety movement and the reservation movement, definitely were not violent.
Do you really think that after August 2024, this entire student movement has been hijacked by Jamaatul Islam and other radical parties there? I mean, it's very evident that they use the name of students, and now whatever bilateral ties we used to have with Bangladesh is no more the same.
So, when the students came out, as I said, and the first killing of Abu Said happened on that particular day in July, the entire country came around them. So, Jamaat is also part of the Bangladesh system, right? Absolutely. And the Islamic radicalists also, they exist. They haven't had much of popular presence, or definitely no electoral presence or political presence, but they remain to be there. And for a long while, because of Sheikh Hasina's measures, they didn't find the space to really look up. But when this happened, when the movement started, they all joined the movement. That was one, of course. And then subsequently, when the interim took over another 3 days' time, I think the attempt was to have a open air for everybody to breathe in, which they felt was very stifled. And it is in that situation we see so much of Islamist groups come up, and the kind of hatred that you talk about, the kind of, anti-Indian position. Because I think nobody, I mean, even somebody who's sympathetic to India and understands why it's important to have a positive engagement with India, is not blind to the fact that India has completely ignored all the other issues that Bangladesh was showing constantly. Just because the growth story is good and because they're engaging with India, we kind of were in denial about the rest of it, saying it's an internal matter. So now they turn it around, that all this while when Sheikh Hasina was at internal, and now when an interim has come in, and then you're not happy with this government, how come then it's not my internal?
Absolutely.
So this is where the
problem
is.
So it was there underneath, but it was not in focus.
Yes,
basically.
yes.
Well, that's all in part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. For the time being, like the video, share it, and give your valuable comments. And most important, subscribe to the Heritage Pod.